Chodesh, Chodem by Chodesh Adar Sheni, Mishnichtan Sadar Marbin B'Simcha. It's also Shabbos Parshas Pekudei, Shabbos Chazak. Our Rabbi says it's supposed to live with the times, so the end of Parshas Pekudei, which we say on it Chazak, Chazak, and this Chazak is supposed to give us encouragement. Speaks about the cloud that covered the Mishkan after Moshe Rabbeinu set up the Mishkan. So there was a cloud which represented the revelation of Hashem, which filled the Mishkan to the extent that Moshe Rabbeinu was not able to go in. Then the pasuk continues to explain how this cloud was the GPS for the Jewish people when they were in the desert, and the cloud would depart, it was time to go. If it didn't depart, it wasn't time to go. And that's what the pasuk, that's what the Parshas Pekudei ends off with. Parshas Vayikra starts, Vayikra Moshe, the Eibusher called to Moshe, which means, the way that Rabbi explains on the Pekudei Torah, Parshas Pekudei ends off that Moshe couldn't go in. It was too intense for Moshe, it was too much of an intense revelation for Moshe to go into the Mishkan. So the Eibusher had to call him, had to, encourage him, had to give him the ability to come in. So the Rebbe focused on these last psukim a number of times. The Rebbe points out that the idea of the journeys in the desert doesn't represent necessarily a very positive thing. Going into the desert by default is not a very hospitable place. It was a dangerous place. The journeys going from place to place in the desert represents that you're traveling in galus, you're traveling from in negative circumstances. Particularly when the cloud departs, the cloud represented the revelation of godliness. When the person is in galus, the revelation of godliness seems to be concealed. It's departing from the Mishkan. But nevertheless, the Rebbe says that it's these journeys that, same way your journey, what's the point of a journey? The point of a journey is not the journey itself. The point of the journey is that it brings you get to a higher destination, a better destination than you were before. So through the journeys of Galos, you're able to reach the greater destination than you were able to achieve on the Mishkan. When the cloud covered the Mishkan, you're able to achieve a certain level of revelation. It says Hi'olis, the Rebbe said the word Hi'olis, which means the cloud departs, also comes from the word Aliyah, elevation. That through going through the difficult journeys of Galos, we reach even higher than we were before. And another allusion the Rebbe brings out, the idea of a cloud by default, although technically referred to revelation, but a cloud represents concealment, right? Parshas, a cloud blocks the sun, a cloud represents concealment. So what do we have? What is the sequence of Parshas Pekudei and Parshas Vayikra? That from the concealment came the revelation, Vayikra Moshe. And the revelation of Vayikra Moshe was even greater revelation than whatever Moshe had before. So when there's a concealment, when there's a helam, we're not supposed to get lost with what we see with our eyes, but we're supposed to realize that eventually it's meant to get us to a gili. That's ulai yeshleimar. We could say this is why we finish off Chazak, Chazak, v'nis Chazak. Why is this pasuk give us chizuk? Because in the times of galus we need added encouragement, not to get thrown off by the things that come our way. There's obviously many things to speak about. Current events is on the mind of every person, but obviously we have to learn Harois and Avodas Hashem, what is demanded, first of all is demanded of us, what we could apply to our daily life. During the Second World War, the Pekudei Rebbe once was the story was repeated was a Chazak Rabbi Shalom Gordon al Shalom, who was there by the Farbrengen, who repeated it. His son repeated many times. The Pekudei Rebbe was said then that during that time, during the beginning, the earlier years of the war, he said that that they saw in the war at that point there were different armies in the world. Certain armies were very good in training. In the barracks and training, they were known as a good army, but when they came to the front lines, it was garnish gevaden, they dissipated very quickly. Then there was another army that wasn't known to be very good. There was nothing special about them, but when they came to the front lines, they held it up. So the commentators, the Pekudei Rebbe didn't obviously spell out. He was talking about, but commentators at the end after the Farbrengen said that the French army was known officially was supposed to be a very, very good army, but they fell very easily. But then you had in Finland, the Finnish army wasn't known to be anything special, but they held up against the Russians quite strongly. So the Frierdiker Rebbe said, what's the Iran Avodas Hashem? He said, years ago, the Hasidim were much greater than, seemingly at least, were much greater than we are. Yeah, the Hasidim, they learned, they davened, but the Chassidim were Chassidim in the barracks. They never really dealt with the ugliness of Elam Hazeh, the ugliness of this world, the way we deal with today. I'm not saying these weren't exact words of Frierdiker Rebbe, I'm just rephrasing it. So today's Chassidim are not maybe in the barracks, maybe our learning and davening is not as great. When it comes to holding up the front lines, the Frierdiker Rebbe used the word, the front hält sich. Chassidim today are holding up the front. Yeah, so that's one thing that obviously we could learn in our Avodas Hashem. Another idea, which is the idea that the is brought down in Sfarim. I mean, it's a famous concept, but is brought down in Sfarim that we know that right before a person is about to lose, so let's say a person is wrestling with someone else. So when he feels that he's about to lose, after then he musters all his strength and he tries his last push, his last bet at being able to overcome his opponent. Like right before a candle goes out, right? That's when it all of a sudden shoots up. So I saw in a certain sefer, I can't remember where, he said that Klippa dances, it tries to make noise, attract attention, but it usually dances to a certain musical note. There's a certain pattern. He says when you see that Klippa does things that make absolutely no sense, it starts dancing like a meshuganer. There's even when you dance, there's dancing, you do all types of crazy dances, but there's a pattern, there's a note, there's a beginning. Yeah? So when the Klippa starts dancing like a meshuganer, that means that its time is about to finish. Because why is it it's not doing anything without any pattern. We see today, B'chlal in the Welt, wherever it is, whether it's what's going on in Ukraine, whatever other place in the world, things are happening that there's no rhyme or rhythm. It doesn't make sense. Why is this guy doing this? Why is that guy doing that? But what is the Hirah for us? The Hirah for us is when it comes in our Avodas Hashem, at least, in our personal Avodas Hashem, is that when we see this going on in the world, what does it mean for us? We have to do Shtus Tektush. We have to do the same thing. We have to do Nyanim and Avodas Hashem without rhyme or reason. Just like in the time of war, right? No one, even the guy never got any training. He doesn't know the first thing. He'll take his gun and shoot. So in the time that you see the world is crazy, you also have to act crazy. What means to act crazy? Even things that a person says, me? I should daven, I should do this. I have my limitations, my budget, how much I give stock. I have my allotted time that I learn Torah. I should do something crazy. No, so now is the time. Now is the time of craziness. Time of craziness. There's no questions asked. Also, obviously in general, the famous thing that they were giving, I saw the kuntas that they were giving out to the Bachrim learning in 770. It's a Sikha, Pekudei Toshem Malach, I think it was. The Rabbi spoke then. The matzav in the world is crazy. The Rabbi says years ago, in order to sow destruction, to destroy your country or to cause havoc upon a large segment of people, a person needed himself to have a large army. It had to be a whole, it was one person on his own was maybe able to kill a few people here and there. He wasn't able to do something on a large scale. The Rabbi said today, with one click of a button, a person could destroy the world. And the Rabbi said, Poshet and Neis, the Rabbi used the expression, Senei Shalom B'derech HaTeva, that is beyond nature, every single day that nothing happens. And the Rabbi says, all you need is one meshuganer that somehow manages to sneak, to get his way into the wrong place. He could press a button and he could... So the Rabbi said, why does Eibush allow such crazy people around the world? So the Rabbi said, very simply, basically that if amongst Jewish people, we are sometimes not overly mahadir and avos Yisrael, so we act, in a very negative way between each other, and the Rebbe was pretty descriptive about that. I'm not going to repeat the whole thing, but you always have people put down other people, always find faults, and so on and so forth. So then, mida keneged mida, and if there's no peace amongst Jews, there's no peace where there's supposed to be peace. The Eibusher allows for crazy people to wreak havoc. So when you see negative things in the world, particularly when it comes to fighting and v'chulu, the Hira obviously is that there has to be an increase in Achdus. A lot of people like some Shlomo Zachi says we're all nice guys, but Sof Kol Sof, there's first of all, there's not speaking, there's not doing anything negative, then there's not even speaking anything negative. A high level is not even to think anything negative about someone else, but at least not to. The Rabbi says, Ma'isa Dibur, at least your thought and your speech, you could control. Thought, you could also control. The thought comes to you, you could throw it out, but Ma'isa and Dibur, you could definitely control. So now that the first thing you have to show is the other person that you're able to be you're able to find his fault, you're able to shtech him, and so on and so forth. There's no need to elaborate on all these things. But in general, there's obviously what's Hamaysa Hua Iker, there's people that need help today, refugees, that showing Achdus for them is as important as any Achdus, obviously more important. And the Sikha of the Rebbe, it reminds me, the Rebbe said a Sikha, it's interesting, a little bit of unique Sikha. The Rebbe usually didn't share childhood memories so much. It was a Farbrengen Vav Tishrei Tavshim Memhei. The Rebbe was Farbrengen 20 years to his mother's yahrzeit. The Rebbe said there was one childhood memory about his mother that sticks out in his head. What's that memory? The Rebbe said during the First World War, so Russia was then fighting with Poland, with Lithuania, and the Russians chased all the Jewish people that lived in the border area out, further into Russia. So he said you can't rely on the Jewish people. Jewish people were always spies, whichever side of the country, every side of the border, always claim the Jewish people were spies. Anyway, Russia said they can't rely on the Jews, so a lot of Jews became refugees, so they had to travel deeper into Russia. So a lot of them stopped in Yaktrinoslav, in Dnepro, it's called today, yeah? Today I think it's called anyway, whichever way. And Rabbi said that at that time his mother was so involved in arranging food and shelter for these refugees that even the Rabbi said, he usually would sit and he didn't really involve himself in everything that was going on. And even the Rebbe himself, it stayed in his memory, made a lasting impression in his memory, remembering how his mother was overly involved in taking care of the refugees. So the Rebbe said, what is the Hira that you can learn in Avodas Hashem from this story? What is the lesson? The Rebbe said that we're living today in a Machal Shel Chesed, living in America, Yishtachas Gachim, Yishtachas Teinasa, you have whatever you want, or you don't want. So you're not in a state of refugee, so what's the thing? So the Rabbi said he realized that the Hira is very simple. Every Jew in Galus by default is in a state of refugee. Galus is not a normal state. Sometimes we're so deep in Galus that we think that this is our place, we think that this is our home, we think that this is life is normal. But in essence, the Rabbi says we're all in refugees. The same we need to help refugees, and they desperately need to get out of danger zone, they need food and shelter. We need direct efforts to get out of Galus. Galus is out. We are all refugees, right? Just like the Palestinians are all refugees 40, 50 years later, We're all, by default, that's them, whatever. But by Etzem, by Yidden, we're refugees. As long as we don't have, we're in Galus, we're refugees. So we have to put, the Rabbi spoken about giving stock or other things too. We have to put in all our effort in ending this crisis. Galus is also the crisis, the source of all crisis. But anyway, that is one point, a few points regarding the current events, as they say. But just want to finish off with one nekuda regarding Parshas Pekudei. Parshas Pekudei usually comes after Chav Zayin Adar. We this week we commemorated 30 years since Chav Zayin Adar.
So I guess the cloud is the stroke?
I have no idea what the cloud is or isn't, but if you see any cloudiness in the world, then you have to do more. That's all I could tell you. So the Parshas, so the last Farbrengen, it was actually the same Kvias as this year, 30 years ago to the day. It was the same exact Kvias. Chav Zayin Adar was on Monday. The Parshas Pekudei was the first Shabbos. There was no Farbrengen. So the Rabbi in Parshas Pekudei, however, it speaks about the importance of Moshe Rabbeinu. It says the Yidden finished the Mishkan, and they brought it to Moshe Rabbeinu, right? And when Moshe Rabbeinu blessed them, it says, Moshe Rabbeinu blessed them, he said that he wants that the Shekhinah should rest in the work of your hands. And the Rabbi explains that a Jew, there's two things. On one hand, every Jew has a messenger, he has a shlichus, he has to do his utmost. You can't just rely on Moshe Rabbeinu. You can't say, there are tzaddikim, there are shluchim, there's a Rebbe who I'll just sit. Every Jew has his job that he has to do. At the end of the day, however, a Jew has to know that in order for his avodah to be successful, right, he could do many things. Question is your avodah going to be done successfully or not? Will you reach the target? So in order for your avodah to be successful, it has to be that you have the blessing of Moshe Rabbeinu. You have to bring your work to Moshe Rabbeinu. You bring your work to Moshe Rabbeinu, so you have a skashus to the Rabbi, you do it permeated with a sense of connection to the Rabbi, then you're successful. So obviously this is always an important lesson, particularly this time of the year. It comes also the month of Adar. We're going to the second month of Adar, which the Rabbi said that the second, we start giving the Machzis HaShekel during the second month of Adar. What is the Machzis HaShekel? Machzis HaShekel is Achdus, right? Each Jew is a half, and two halves of a shekel make a whole. But it's Achdus with money, right? The same thing Purim. You have there's many different things you could do for Achdus, but what was the Achdus of Purim? You give Mishalech Manos, you give Matanas Avyenim, you give money or food, physical items one to another to express Achdus. So the Rabbi said a very simple word. The Rabbi said that money is usually the source of much strife between one person and another. Most arguments, whether it's family, whether it's siblings, whether it's people, it's about money. Yeah? So the Rabbi says the meaning of Machzis HaShekel is that you should use your money instead of using the money being a source of strife and debate and so on. The money should be a source of Achdus. So you give the money, you give the Machzis HaShekel, you give Shlach Manos, showing Achdus in money. And this Achdus that Jewish people have, what gives the Koyach? The Koyach comes from Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu is the one that unites the Jewish people together. He was the whole miracle of Purim came because Moshe Rabbeinu was born in Zion Adar. So we should all be united and help those that need to be helped, Gashmis and Ruchnius. And Eibusha should help us, and we should have the V'nahapechu. The things should be transformed. Coming with Mashiach now.